welcome to the Master Your Mix podcast. My name is Mike Indovina, and thank you for hanging out with me today. Today, I'm chatting with my good friend, Selim, who is a fellow Canadian audio educator. He runs the website Mixdown Online. And not only is he a Canadian audio educator, but he's also a drummer as well. So in today's episode, we nerd out about a bunch of different stuff. We get into his beginnings and getting into a niche market. He was in the Christian Francophone music scene. And so we talk about getting started early in your career and really niching down on a very specific small scene and how to get your foot in the door. And some of the ways that he was really creative with making sure that when he got started, he was leading with his best foot forward and he was making an amazing sounding portfolio. Even if he wasn't quite at the level of proficiency that he wanted, he found, I'm not going to spoil for you, but he found some great ways to make sure that his portfolio sounded awesome and people would start paying attention to him and that he could build his clientele. So in this interview, we definitely dive into that. We also, obviously, because we're both drummers recording from home studios, we get into his process for recording drums from home. And he's got some great tips there as far as how to make a small, dead sounding room actually sound really big. And there's lots of cool techniques and even a really kind of unique approach that I don't think many people have even tried. I certainly haven't tried it myself yet either. So I think you're going to find that part of the conversation interesting. And then we obviously get into the usual mixing workflows and really understanding Chris's mindset going into a new project, how he starts, how he organizes his sessions, and the importance of things like routing and how big of a role that plays in the overall process as far as helping him get organized and make sure that he's mixing efficiently. So yeah, we cover a lot of ground in this episode. It's a really fun one. I can't wait for you to check it out. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. Selim, thank you so much for being on the MasterYourMix podcast. How's it going today, man?
It's doing pretty good. And thanks for the invite. I'm excited.
Of course, man. Of course.
We were way overdue.
Audio educator? Yes, definitely, man. I love catching up with you. It's awesome. For people who might not be familiar with you and what you do and all the cool stuff you have been up to lately, can you give us that background on who you are, what you do, and how you got into this?
Yeah, basically I'm a music producer, mixing, mastering engineer. I've been producing and mixing since 2003. So I guess that would make it 22 years. Time flies. And at some point, I just decided to jump on YouTube, starting to share my knowledge and help home studio musicians to produce their own music and mix their own stuff. And this is what I've been doing since 2015, late 2015, I think, when I started to jump on YouTube. And the rest is history. This is what I mainly do for a living, working on some mixes, of course, which I never stopped doing, but also content creator in the audio scene, which is always fun and exciting.
Of course, man. What got you into production in the first place?
Oh, I used to, since I was a kid, I always wanted to play music. At some point, I wanted to play bass. And me and a friend of mine, we thought of starting a band, even if we never played an instrument in our lives back then. It's always the dream, to be like your music heroes and stuff, So I said, you know what? I think I'm going to play bass. But then he picked the bass before I did. So, you know what? Oh, okay, I just jumped on drums and that was it, So I started with that. Then that led to joining a more professional type band years later. And even in high school, I was like, yeah, you know what? I kind of love the music production side of things. I was always looking at, okay, who's producing that record? And I started to have some producer heroes and stuff at that age. And I decided to, you know what? This is what I want to do for a living. To the point then, I remember in high school went to a career type of course and talking about what we want to do when we grow old. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a music producer. Even the teacher was like, what's that? what's that does, So I was like, yeah, it's producing music and stuff. So yeah, you know what? I don't think there's a future in that. So choose something else. Which I did. But that, at some point it's just like, oh, I got the opportunity to go through a music production course in Drummondville, Quebec it was an intense program at a college. So this is what I decided to take. And that led me to start my own business. And the band I was playing with at the time too, we kind of had some management in Nashville, traveling across Canada and a bit in the States. And I kind of got touch with the production world at this point, and that led me to take that program and and start my own business on producing music, which I did from that point in 2003. I was pretty involved into Christian music back then, so I got into that scene, especially on the Francophone side in Quebec and in France and the rest of Europe, and that led me to a lot of pretty nice gigs and opportunities that led me to where I am right now.
That's amazing, man. Was the idea when you decided that you wanted to do this, like, was the idea to always like have your own studio, or were you going to try to get jobs at other places and do it that way?
No, my intention was to start my own studio, like home or project studio. It never caught my idea to just like move to LA or Nashville and start being an intern and go throughout to that route, which is actually back then would have been a pretty good route to take, I have to say. But I decided just to start my own thing and build that up with my possible clients that I had in mind in that very, very small market. Which is very tiny. You're talking about Christian music and then French music, so it cannot be tinier than that, in my opinion. But when you're one of the only ones doing that work, which I was back in the day, it got me almost all the gigs. So I didn't feel the need to do something else.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the idea of like niching down, it can be advantageous for some people, right? Like some people want to kind of be involved in a lot of different styles of music, and other people want to be known as that person who's really good at one thing. But I think either way, it's like it can always be a little intimidating when you're first getting started and you're not sure of like, how do I get clients? Like, how do I convince someone to pay me to do this stuff, right? So as far as like getting in that scene, like I'm assuming that with like the Christian scene, you're probably at church, you're probably meeting a lot of different musicians that way and maybe introducing the topic in church. Is that kind of how it started as far as like that networking side and converting people to become customers of yours?
Yeah, part of it, yes. Like the band I was playing with, the lead singer had a home studio and already was working with some Christian artists in Quebec. And that was the kind of connections I established, I was playing drums on those projects and got friends with these artists. So when I decided to start this production program and start my own business, it kind of led to some gigs through those contacts. And one of them was actually a very good one. He started his label at some point and brought me a bunch of nice projects to work on. So a lot is our contacts, basically. You're at the right moment at the right time and the right place at the right time. There you go.
For sure. Yeah. No, and definitely it helps to have someone who has like a lot of different clients, or like, in your case, a label. They're going to have lots of different artists. If they like the work you do, then that's a great person to get in with, right? Of
course. And then it comes down to the work you do, afterwards. So once you work on one project, if you do a lousy job, don't expect to get a call back, So, and I remember the first project I produced for this artist, it was a live album. And I never did a live album before. It was like I was out of that production program and I got that call. It was like, hey, you know what? He was an established Christian worship artist in Canada and in Europe. And he asked me, you know what? I want to record a live album. Can you do this? I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do this. Hang up the phone. It was like, okay, how am I going to do this? I never did that before. And I just surrounded myself with good people, better than what I, what I am anyway. So like I produced the album. I was the drummer on the album, work on the arrangements and stuff, but all the recording was done by someone else since I was playing. And the mixing also, since I wasn't that experimented in mixing music at the time, I just hired a mixing engineer who became my mentor from that point. And so I was like looking over his shoulder, while he was mixing the album, and I learned a lot of stuff. And that led me to produce the second album from the same client. And I did everything at this point. I started the studio, bought some gear, rented a lot of gear too at the time to start up. And that was pretty cool.
Love that, man. I think sometimes you just have to take your chances, right? It's like, when you're getting started, like, what else are you going to do, right? Sure, I mean, you can be transparent with someone and let them know, like, okay, maybe I don't have that much experience with this, and that's one thing. But like, sometimes you just got to take that shot, and just do it.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter how small your niche is. Like this one is like a very, very small niche, but once other people and other musicians start to listen to those albums I worked on, the phone started to ring and I just started to get some calls.
I think it's smart too that you put together a bit of a team to help you with that process to make sure that the end result ended up being really good. And then, it doesn't look poorly on you. It at least shows that you put that effort in to care about the project and get the results, right?
Honestly, that was key. It's always been my mentality anyways, to if I can access someone who is better than myself, I'm going to work with him, and especially at this point, it was my first project. I didn't want to risk anything. So why would I risk mixing an album when I never mixed an album before? And it's a paid gig, so I'm just going to hire someone, learn as we go, so I was part of the whole mixing process, and I learned so much. Actually, it was a very good investment. Paid by someone else for me. So
those are always the best investments.
Oh yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Yeah, it's same as a musician. I played a lot of drums on most of the albums I produced and I worked on over the years. But it was like a couple of occasions where I wasn't the right drummer for the project I was producing myself. Like there was like that artist where on the album was like one reggae song and two jazz song, and I'm not a jazz drummer. I can, play a bit of reggae, but I don't have the feel. I'm like a white dude. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't pull it off. So I worked with a good friend of mine in Florida. He had access to a great studio with like amazing musicians. And we did that recording for those 3 songs remotely. So I worked with my friend Jimmy on the arrangements for these songs, but then the recording part was done in Florida in that studio. And I was actually remotely connected on Zoom and assisting the recording session. And these guys were like, that drummer especially was like a killer drummer. And so even if I was able to maybe pull off a bit of the reggae song as a drummer, Jimmy, the guitar player I was working with, was like, yeah, this is a pretty good track, let's keep it. I was like, you know what, that kind of suck. So no, I'm not going to keep it. So I fired myself as a drummer on that project for those songs anyways, and hired someone that was way better than me. And honestly, it shows on the album. So it was a good call.
Absolutely, man. I love that. That's so key. And I think so many people want to do it all themselves because it's like, I don't know if it's like an ego thing or just like a pride thing. I'm like, I just did it all myself. But like, yeah, if the quality is going to suffer, sure, like you get that like dopamine hit of like, yeah, I did it myself. But the quality suffers and everyone else is going to kind of think poorly of the end result. So it's like, why not just do it right,
It's funny. That's a lesson I've learned from my uncle. He's a very successful businessman. And at some point, he was the CEO of his company. And he fired himself to put someone better than him as a CEO, He was still the owner, but as a CEO, it's like, you know what? Like, this guy's going to do a way better job than myself, and this is why I'm just going to step aside and bring this person in, and it's going to go way better, So I was like, okay, if that guy can do this and this is the mindset he has, it definitely works in our world.
That's a really refreshing take to hear as well. I feel like, again, going back to like, I think of like so many of my students and they're just like working on their own music. And it's, that there's that idea of like, well, I don't know any good drummers necessarily, so I'm going to play it myself or I'll program or whatever. And it's like, but then you can like find good drummers anywhere. Like I have some students that just go on Fiverr and find good drummers or like fiddle players or whatever. And like whatever gets a job done and makes it sound good, it's better than trying to like kind of half-ass it. So yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes the time you're going to waste trying to edit everything, especially with drums, to make them sound good, to be tight and stuff with the projects, like, better just hire like a real professional drummer. If time is money, it's going to be worth it.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, getting started, it sounds like, you're putting together this team, building your portfolio with the help of other people behind these projects, but building up a strong portfolio. And one of the things that I was curious about, just like in your earlier days, is, I mean, these days with Mixdown Online, you have a lot of content around CUBASE specifically, and in many circles, you're the CUBASE guy. You're definitely my CUBASE guy. I know, like, I refer a lot of people your way for that kind of thing. So when you were getting started, did you start with CUBASE? Was that your first DAW, or did you get there eventually? You did.
I did, because I'm going to get back to the band I was playing with. Like, the lead singer had a home studio, like I was saying. He was working on CUBASE. At the time, he was working on CUBASE VST, which is like a late 90s version. It was on Mac with a G4 tower. It was like the big blue thing, And so I just watched him work. And when I started production school, then a lot of the students, everyone had a copy of CUBASE. At the time, it was so easy to crack. Like so. And it was on PC also, and everyone was on PC, most of them anyways. So I just like, you know what, at some point I'm just going to buy it, and which I did the minute I started the business. I just bought CUBASE, a license, SX2, when I started, and I just kept on going with CUBASE, and my friend was already working on CUBASE, so it was pretty cool to have someone I know that knows the software pretty well. But I learned stuff on Digital Performer, also Pro Tools that I eventually purchased. I think it was Pro Tools 10. I mixed I tried to record with it, which I wasn't like a big fan on recording and editing on Pro Tools. I know that a lot of people are going to probably laugh at me right now, but because a lot of people love Pro Tools for editing especially. But I don't know, it just didn't work for me. But for mixing, it was great to mix on. So I had a very good time mixing on Pro Tools, but afterwards I just went back to CUBASE.
So it was just like more of like a workflow thing that kept you back on.
It is a workflow thing. And the fact that CUBASE is kind of good at everything. It's a good production DAW. You work on MIDI. It's amazing at MIDI. It's amazing at mixing. It's great recording workflow. So it does every part of music production pretty well without necessarily focusing on one specific thing, opposed to other DAWs, But there's so many good DAWs these days that, it's at this point, it's kind of a personal choice. I don't think it affects the quality of a production, but it could. It could if it affects your workflow.
Yeah, you don't feel like different DAWs sound different?
No.
Fair.
No.
There's always that debate, right?
No.
Like I see that online all the time. Like, oh, this DAW sounds better, or like,
no.
Even like there was that video that came up like, what was it, 6 months ago? It was like, this Pro Tools meter sounds different than makes Pro Tools sound better than all the other Pro Tools meters if you use this. It's like, come on. It's a state of mind, I think, It's
zeros and ones. It's digital. Like, I don't know what to say, maybe plugins may sound different. Stuck plugins from one DAW to another. You could prefer stuck plugins out of Logic more than CUBASE or whatever, or vice versa. But as far as the DAW goes, I don't hear any differences whatsoever.
I agree with that 100%. I think that, like, yes, if you listen to a ton of recordings that have been done or mixes that have been done in Logic or CUBASE or Pro Tools, it's like, if people are using stock plugins, they're going to sound different. Like I think the Logic reverbs sound incredible, but they're a little bit darker sounding than a lot of the Pro Tools stock reverbs. So you might be inclined to think that Logic just sounds a little bit darker, And so like maybe that's what people get in their head of like that's the sound of it,
But it's the plugins.
Yeah, it's more than it has nothing to do with the workflow or any of that. Like, yeah.
No, that's what I think, anyways. And even if there was a difference, I couldn't care less. So.
It's true. At the end of the day, if you have a sound in mind of what you want it to be, you're just going to work to get that.
Of course. Exactly. With the tools you have. It's not going to be like dependent on the DAW you work on.
Yeah. So for people who are maybe getting started with this stuff, do you have any advice as far as picking a DAW?
Go with what fits you well. So if you do a lot of live stuff and you're a lot into EDM and stuff, maybe like Bitwig could be good for you, or Ableton Live could be a good fit. If you do a lot of mixing, then CUBASE, Pro Tools, Studio One even can work pretty well. Production side, Logic is good. I'm not a big fan of Logic, but it does. A lot of people are using Logic to produce music, and even a lot of friends of mine are going to work on Logic to make their like full production, especially MIDI and stuff, and the synths and all that type of production side. And then they're going to switch to a DAW like Pro Tools or CUBASE to mix.
Yeah, I think it's just like whatever you pick, just learn it. Like take the time to really go deep with it. Learn all the menus and all that.
Exactly. Whatever gets you in the mood on creating music and releasing music, whatever makes you create and release music faster and more efficiently, and that gives you more inspiration, just work with that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, take the time to learn the keyboard shortcuts, to learn what's in the menu, like learn all the stock plugins, and once you do that, you'll be so much more efficient with whatever DAW you pick.
Exactly.
Like,
This is something, yeah, totally. This is something I encourage everyone to do. Learn all the tools you have in your DAW, maximize everything you can get out of that DAW. And that means know all of the plugins, how they work, how you can mix with them. Try to mix a full song only with stock plugins. My first mixing course is all about that. And I'm actually working on a course right now, which is almost done, which is like going through all the CUBASE plugins from A to Z.
it's amazing what you can do with stock plugins, and I think a lot of people just dismiss it because maybe they like the look of a certain plugin, and they think that makes. I mean, maybe this is the debate that we're having here of like why different DAWs sound different, or why people prefer one versus another. It's like they like the look of it, and that's just like that makes you think it sounds better.
Exactly, and if you like the look of it, work with it.
Yeah.
I work
if it
with
helps
some
you,
plugins.
if it's inspiring, yeah.
If it's exactly, sometimes the visual side of a plugin or a DAW might trigger some inspiration. Funny enough, just more enjoyable to work with just because of the visual of the GUI. I admit it. I love working with the FabFilter Pro Q4. It looks good. It doesn't sound any better than my Frequency 2 plugin I have in CUBASE, which I still use. And it's just faster sometimes just to open the stock plugin, but it does look so good that it's maybe more enjoyable for me to work on, even if it doesn't necessarily sound better.
Yeah, it's definitely a workflow thing. Like I put myself through that challenge a while ago of like, let me make the same mix with like my third-party plugins and then only stock plugins. And definitely the mix that I did with my third-party plugins went faster because I knew those tools well enough. Like, I've spent so much time in those plugins. But with the stock plugins, my mix sounded just as good. It took me a little longer because I was like learning the tools at the time. But like, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of like rediscovering, okay, where's this option, whatever. But like once you learn that, like now you know it. And I bet you if I did that same thing again, I'd be so much faster now that I've at least spent the time to learn those plugins a little bit more, right?
For sure. No, the thing with stock plugins and third-party plugins is, there's some plugins like third-party that sound pretty good. If you're aiming for that specific sound, especially in the analog simulation world, which I think they have better plugins than stock plugins. But maybe not all the time though. For the most part, okay? But a lot has to do with the workflow of the plugin. Sometimes a plugin is going to bring you from A to Z quicker than a stock plugin. Sometimes that's a decision why I'm going to work with, X plugin compared to, even if I can do the same thing with my stock plugins, maybe instead of using 3 plugins, now I'm using only 1 plugin to do the same job, So sometimes it's just like quicker, and so you pay for the workflow. Sometimes you pay for I wouldn't say the sound quality, but maybe like the sound character or the vibe or the tone, the color you're looking for. That's another reason to get a third-party plugin.
For sure, yeah. I agree. I think it's like these days, I own like way too many plugins, and I use like 10 of them, but it's like, to me, it's like the only time I ever buy new plugins these days is if either it does something that my current plugin list doesn't have, which is super rare that happens, or number 2, it just gets me a result faster. And it's not necessarily that it sounds better, it's just like I can get something done faster. Like I find with a lot of mastering plugins, like, or mastering EQs, like I don't need more EQs, but like sometimes you get like that magic frequency that certain plugin already kind of has as a fixed frequency, and it's easy to get what I need, but it doesn't actually change the results. It's just faster for me,
Yeah, but same for me. Like the last plugin I purchased was the Pro Q4 from FabFilter, because I already had the 3, so I just paid the $70 it costed me to upgrade to the new version, and I have everything in my access to everything to do the same thing that the FabFilter Pro Q4 does. But now I can do everything inside the same plugin. So that means dynamic EQ, like a regular EQ, even resonance suppression. Instead of adding an extra plugin to do that part, I could do everything inside that one plugin. So I save a bit of time.
Yeah, for sure. I love it, man. Well, another topic that I want to talk to you about today, which I think is both near and dear to both of our hearts, is drums. And you're a drummer. You've been at this for a long time, and I know that you record a lot of drums at home. And as you can see behind me, I've got my kits all set up, ready to go too. Love to chat about recording drums at home and just like some of the challenges and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. I know that you have also gone through a couple different studio iterations over the last few years too. So yeah. I'm sure like the challenge of learning how to get great drums from home is something that you've spent a lot of time with. So I guess the first question when it comes to like getting great drums at home is like, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important factor as far as getting great drums from home?
Good drums, good sounding drums to begin with. No, I think that's a good part of it, but also good miking techniques and a decent room, and creativity. Because it is challenging when you're in a small space. It is more challenging than when you have like a more, recording dedicated space for drum recording, like I had in my old studio back in Quebec, because I moved 3 years ago from the east to the Western Canada. And back in Quebec, I had that very nice project studio in the basement of my house that we actually built from the ground up. And it was a nice space for drums, even like moving acoustic panels to change the sound of the room and make it more live or more dead. It was very flexible, high ceilings and all that stuff. So that was pretty nice to work into. Now that I moved out of that house, I'm like the regular Joe in a regular size basement, setting up my drums in my home studio, which is actually fun. But I had to be a bit more creative and just to adjust myself to record drums in a very small, tiny room. And I'm still experimenting. I don't think I landed yet to my favorite drum sound, but it's getting there. So a lot of experimenting to do yet, but it's fun. There's always ways to make a good drum sound, a good drum recording sound great in a small room.
Well, you said one key word there, which was you're learning to adjust. And I'm curious, like, what does adjusting look like to you? Like, when you're going from that bigger studio, obviously, like, the space is different and maybe having some of those panels and stuff like that. But, like, what would you say has been the biggest adjustment you've found and how have you kind of changed that or worked with that to your advantage?
Yeah, so for example, like the room next to where I am right now, this is my new drum studio. It's a den room, okay, so it's very small. Enough to put the drums in, but just to record into, if you like dead type of drums, drum sound without any space, it's fine. And you can add everything in post anyways. But I kind of like a drum recording that I have control with the live sound of the drums. And that was way easier in my old studio where the space was bigger, so you got some room mics and it sounds like a room and not like a closet, So the adjustment was to be creative on that side. So I actually made a video on that on YouTube talking about my process to get some good live room sound out of a drum recording in a small room. So across the hall from my small space, I have my bathroom. So I just use that to my advantage. Nothing is more live than a bathroom. So I
love bathrooms. Like, bathrooms are like my favorite thing to record.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So you know what? Might as well take advantage of that. And in the basement, there's always a space that is going to be more live. It could be like the hallway, could be like the stairs, the machine room, whatever you have. In my case, the bathroom worked pretty well. Installed a couple of mics, a couple of room mics, and start to blend that with the dry signals. Like, oh, okay, there's something to do here, and then you can enhance everything in that room effect during the mixing stage with more plugins and just compress the heck out of those room mics and just have fun. And that adds a lot. Even when I just go into the room and practice, I just set up my room mics into my bathroom, just like to rehearse and just have fun playing drums, because I love having that live feel and sound, even if I'm just practicing drums.
For sure, yeah. I think like, when you're working in a small space, you're right. You have to be very creative with it. Like, yeah, you can you can get great results from close miking, and I think people should focus on getting great close mics first and foremost before you start getting into all the rooms and stuff. But it's like, once you've got that foundation, then you need to start experimenting. Like maybe it's putting mics facing the opposite direction, or in a bathroom, or opening up a door somewhere and putting a mic in the hallway. Like all of those things can add so much depth to what you're working with. And I think bathrooms, like I said, like those are my favorite things to record. Like I feel like every studio that I have a bathroom available, there's a mic going in there somehow.
I love it.
And you just compress the snot out of it, because like most of those bathrooms are like tiled and reflective, and you get some really cool character out of it that most bedrooms just don't have. So it's worth playing with those.
And the bathroom is like way smaller than my small recording room. Imagine, but still gives a huge live sound to the drum. So yeah, it's fun to experiment with stuff like that. There's no limits. And I like what you say, getting a good drum sound right away into your small room is key, because everything else can be added afterwards. But from this point, if you can add more to your good sounding drums that you have in your dead small space, man, more power to you.
For sure. I've created, I laugh because I've taken so many impulse responses of bathrooms specifically.
No way. That's funny. Oh,
just like when you find something cool, you gotta play with it. And if you're gonna just record dry drums, you can feed it through something like that and get that character off of it.
I love it. So how do you record your drums?
I mean, for me, so in this space here, I mean, it's a little hard to tell right now, but my room's not I have a weirdly positioned door behind me. So I had to kind of put my drums a little off centered, but I just have I'm going to try to say this while I'm talking to the mic. I could just mainly have close mics, and that's pretty much all I'm doing right now, to be honest, is just close mics. I haven't bothered with rooms in this specific room because I got all my desks and all this other crap around. But behind that door is a staircase, so I could throw mics up in that staircase and get some cool character off of that. And then the other room is kind of a concrete storage room next to me as well, so I can throw some stuff in there and get some depth off of that too. So
are you in the basement?
It's in the basement, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fun. You can, again, my dry drums sound good, and I'm happy with those, but now it's just when I want to get a little bit more depth, throw something out in the hallway or whatever, get some cool character off of that, and that adds something unique,
Yeah, totally.
But also, I'm not afraid to add a Sound City plugin or any of those UAD room simulation plugins too, because sometimes those rooms sound better. So you just work with it if you need.
I'm going to add those anyways. Even if I have the bathroom mics, I'm still going to work with these type of room plugins because they do sound pretty good. And I actually like to add them on overheads, or even a tip. If you don't have access to a little live bathroom or something, you can just add your room mic in the same small room. Doesn't matter. And on that room recording, add a room reverb plugin, a real room emulation, to emulate a big room out of that room microphone. So,
yeah, I think that's you definitely have to, again, just start with getting good close mic sounds, because then when you feed those into some of those UAD things or whatever, then you're at least feeding good content into those, so it sounds good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I asked that question to you, what's that top priority when it comes to drums? It's I think number one, it's the drummer. It's got, if you have a good drummer in the small room, you can get a little bit more control of the performance and all that stuff, play into the room, that kind of thing.
That's the answer I should have answered with, yeah.
No, I'm not saying that to argue, because I think the second thing is the drums, or more, maybe more specifically tuning than the shells themselves.
I think you can get away with a okay drum kit. But if you have good tuning, and like you said, and I think this is the most important, a good drummer, you can pull it off big time. You can have an amazing drum recording. A drummer, the way the drummer is going to hit is going to make the drum of the sound different. The drum sound different. You can have a lousy drummer on an amazing drum kit, and it's going to sound okay, opposed to an okay drum kit with an amazing drummer that hits hard or whatever, that has a good feel. This one is this recording is going to be a killer compared to the other one.
But even hitting hard, I think a lot of people think too that like hitting hard is the best thing to do. Like you hit your drums, it's exciting. But even then there's control. Sometimes when you hit too hard, you choke off the drums, right? And like sometimes you need to hit a little bit softer, let the drum breathe a little bit more too. So there's that element to like understanding the dynamics of a drummer and how to control their performance.
Especially with cymbals. When you're in this recording studio, you record drums. If you don't have control over the cymbals and nice dynamics, you're done.
Yeah. It's so easy to like kill or like choke off the cymbal if you're like hammering into it and like really digging into it, you know?
Big time.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So speaking of cymbals then, when it comes to overheads in a small space, how do you like to treat your overheads? Like, do you think of your overheads more as like cymbal mics or are they kit mics?
It depends. Usually I go with kick, not kick, but with kit type of approach. That's usually what I try to do because I kind of like the snare sound coming into the overheads too. That balance is pretty nice. It adds to the tone of the snare. And I make sure when I record drums that I have a good kick sound and a good snare sound. And the combination of the rooms, but especially the overheads with the snare mic adds a lot to the whole snare sound. So I kind of like that approach. However, it depends on the song I'm working on. Sometimes you need to have like only the cymbals mic. In that case, I would bring them a bit closer to the cymbals. And that will be it. The mic placement is going to be a bit different in that case. Because there's several ways you can place microphones on drums, you know. Like right now, I'm actually doing the same as you do. This is the way my microphones are set up. You know, that's it. Yeah.
To me, that's always a technique that's worked for me. Like I've tried the other things and it always works. Yeah.
It works all the time. There's another one that I kind of like to work with ribbon mics, figure eight. You place them like on top of the snare, angled with each, like in front of each other, angled. So I forgot the term of that technique, but actually I have a recording course. It's all in there. But so that one works also pretty good. Very nice, natural stereo image. But again, it's for a general drum sound more than focusing on the cymbals only.
Mm-hmm. And even, I think too, like even if you are using your overheads as cymbal mics, you can always bring in that like mono overhead that goes right above the drummer, and that's maybe focused more on the kick and snare.
Definitely. A lot of people do that too, you know. And even myself, I have like that one mic behind me that is aiming the kick and snare, and you know, you compress that guy pretty much, and could add a lot. I
feel like whenever you do that, it just really helps to like, emphasize that fullness in the middle of a mix, especially when you have like stereo space pair, and it fills in that center, that pocket, like pretty nicely.
Totally. So what do you prefer? Miking cymbals or the whole kit?
I'm always a cymbal guy personally. That's my approach to it. Because my thinking behind that is that like I'm probably going to add some samples into a mix later on, and if I'm kind of not necessarily eliminating the drums from the overheads, but if I'm kind of making it more cymbal focused, then when I add samples into it, that doesn't really mess with the overall perception of the drums. It kind of just can blend in and still have cymbals kind of working together with the samples a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But funny enough, you know, I kind of focus, I like to have like a general drum sound with the overheads, and you focus more on the cymbals, but we have the same mic setup.
Yeah.
So
totally. I mean, they all work, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it depends too on like just how you're like what kind of stuff you're doing in a mix. Like if you're going for like if you're working, like I work on a lot of heavier stuff, so it's definitely going to be getting some samples in there just to like augment the sound. So because of that, I'm anticipating that later on down in the chain. Whereas if you're working on stuff that's maybe a little bit more natural sounding, then like having a full natural sounding kit in your overheads is going to be really important. You're going to be pushing those drums up a lot more.
But the big question, Mike, what about the hi-hat? Do you mic the hi-hat?
I do. I always have it. I rarely. I mean, it's in my mixes,
you use it?
But I use it in every mix. Believe it or not, I use it in every mix. But it's super tucked. And if anything, I would say that like I actually like to distort hi-hat mics. Like I find that doing that, just like a little bit of saturation, like makes the hi-hats feel like they were hit a little bit harder, and like it's not just like a really thin, like ear-piercing top-end blast. I find it thickens them up a little bit, but it also gives like any snare bleed a little bit more beef as well too. So it can be I don't know. They're like I said, they're very low in my mixes for sure, because I mean, they're all over the overheads, right? But
Exactly. So that's why, like, most of the time I don't use them. I still record them. I still record the hats.
yeah. I feel like I can't not have them because at some point I'm going to need them. You know, like,
I know. And if you don't record them, that's going to be the time you're going to need them in the mix. And you say, oh, and this is hard to replace with a sample.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might as well record it.
For sure. I mean, the only thing that I don't have currently right now, but I usually try to do it if I'm in a bigger space, is like have a ride mic as well. And then at least I feel like I've got like the hi-hat or the ride, depending on what part of the song they're at, like I've got a lot of control there. And again, like that's probably not going to be super loud in the mix, but it's just something like for when I need that extra detail, it's there.
But again, it's style dependent, you know, so some like fusion jazz and stuff like that, I would mic the ride for sure, you know, and make sure the hi-hat is present in the mix and stuff, you know, because like now, like you said, you're talking about detailed and you need like that left and right separation between the hats and the ride and all that stuff, you know. So in that case, yeah, apart from that, I don't also mic the ride. I did once, but
or if you're doing like metal, you'll like mic the China or something because you'll probably have a million China hits.
You need that. You need that. Or if you're recording country, maybe the cowbell. I don't know.
Well, you need a cowbell mic. Come on. It has to be the loudest thing in the mix all the time.
And something like if some of you listening are recording drums in a studio and like you have like a talkback microphone to communicate with the drummer, record that mic.
Yeah, of course. Any mic you can get in, like get it in there. Have it there.
Surprisingly enough, a mic like the talkback microphone can be a very, very cool sound to add it to the drum sound. Honestly, it's surprising.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that because most people just don't like care, like, because they're not even thinking about using it in the mix. It's just like it's there for a specific purpose to talk back, but because of that, I feel like people put them in weird positions that have this like cool character. And like, yeah, maybe it's just something like one section of the song that you need kind of this like heavy affected, distorted thing. That's going to be the mic. You know, you can play with it. I mean, it goes back to what we're talking about. Like, just like throw mics in weird places and you'll get something cool out of it.
Exactly. Especially with drums. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of weird places, one of the things that I saw you recently added to your setup is that you've been doing that Sylvia Massey hose technique.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. I've never done it myself.
Listen, I wanted to try it. You know, I saw my friend Chaz trying it out. I saw the video with Sylvia Massey also, and I was like, okay, I need to try this out. Now I'm in a small room, so anything I can add to get more flexibility and more options to the drum sound, I'm going to take it, you know. So, yeah, so the concept, the idea is you have the hose, like maybe I think I got a 25 feet hose, you know. So you kind of put it around the drums, on the floor, around your drums. And on one end, there's a microphone that you tape inside the hose itself. So you can actually check it out on the video. I think I forgot what I think I showed the way I taped it. But yeah, so you tape that up and you block the other end, if I'm not mistaken. And the resonance of the drums that goes through the hose will go in the microphone, and that will produce a kind of a live boomy sound. So it's not going to be bright. It's going to be pretty like dark. It's on the dark side. But again, when you blend this with the rest of the drum kit, especially if you add some compression, a lot of stuff, it could add something pretty cool. You know, it's not something I would like overdo, but it's something more to the drum sound that could be a cool thing. I
feel like not having the top end is actually like one of the advantages of it to some degree.
It is in a way. Yeah.
You can push it and get more body off of your drums without all of that extra brightness.
Exactly. So it has that advantage. So, no, it's worth a try. So I did it for this video and I kept it in, and then I had to remove the drums for some reason. And now I need to, I didn't reinstall the hose yet, but I think I'm going to do it again. So we'll see.
That's very cool. I got to try it out, man. I feel like it's, I've heard so many cool things that Sylvia's done with it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's not something that I miss when I don't have it, but when it's there, it's like, okay, I'm going to do something cool with it.
It's like, I mean, you get your overheads to capture above the drums and obviously your cymbals, but I feel like having something low like that can be really, really good. And, you know, especially if it's blocking off that top end.
But it's funny, man. And then you just like work with the placement of that microphone. I just put it in this SM57, just a dynamic microphone, the cheapest you have, and just like move that around, and you'll get different tone, different. It's going to focus on different part of the drums also, but it's cool.
Nice. Is it something that you feel like you end up adding a lot of compression to, or like saturating that kind of thing after the fact?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Saturation, compression, and you're going to get the best out of it.
Nice. Love it, man. Do you find you saturate drums in general a lot?
I do. A lot. I'm not sure. It depends, but I do. Depending on the song I work on, sometimes it's going to require me to get more of that saturation effect. Okay. But most of the time it's just to add harmonics to make the drum sound fuller.
Do you prefer to do that in post, or do you do it with like your mic pre's?
Both. So I have a like 4 Vintech 473 pre's. So I like to put basically the kick and snares basically on these preamps. And the cool thing with these type of preamps is you have like the input level and the output level, so you can actually drive the circuit a bit more since you have control on the output level. So that is the advantage. Yeah. So I try to, again, it's not to create like saturation per se, but more harmonics out of those preamps. So that's a good way to do it. Something you cannot do with a regular preamp out of an interface, which only has like a gain knob.
Yeah. Usually you're just going to get clean out of an interface preamp and that's it.
Yeah, which is fine. You can do everything else in post if you want to, So but I kind of like to get the sound right away. So yeah, I'm going to play with that. And I also have, I'm using it's set up beside my drums is I forgot the name of that unit, but it's from Warm Audio, like the tape machine type of, I made a video on this one. I forgot the name.
It's like their Ampex model or something like that?
It's not an Ampex model per se, but it's basically, it has like tape type of emulation, but it's mainly like a saturation unit and a preamp. At the same time, that you can saturate pretty well, and it sounds pretty good. I'm gonna have to find the name of that unit, but it's great. So yeah, I love to put the overheads in there.
Nice. Do you like brighter sounding overheads, or are you more of a darker, like ribbon kind of guy?
More darker. Yeah, like the cymbals I have are pretty bright, so I tend to process a bit more dark in post than anything else, But I would love to put my hands on some more darker type of cymbals.
But that's also like kind of an interesting thing that you bring up there too, is that idea of like kind of having something that's opposite to what your cymbals are. Because I bet you, if you had darker cymbals, you're probably going to use something a little bit brighter, maybe more of a condenser mic. Whereas if you have like really bright cymbals, you kind of sometimes need to tame that edge on them with a little bit of a darker mic too.
Yeah, this is where a ribbon mic, like a pair of ribbon mics, can work pretty well as overheads.
Yeah, I've always just gravitated towards like small diaphragm condensers for some reason. I just, maybe because I do treat my mics as cymbal mics specifically. Like I'm kind of just looking for that top end generally, but yeah, there's definitely a balance of like finding the right thing that goes along with the cymbals.
Yeah, exactly.
And, cymbal sections is massive.
What do you use?
Right now I've got some like practice cymbals, so they're not they're just kind of like low volume cymbals that I got online. But usually I'm more of like a Sabian. I like the brighter, like the AAX, I think is what I use. I find that they're kind of like, they're brighter and they're thinner. And I just find that they do a pretty good job of just sitting above everything, but not in like a really harsh way. Whereas if you get sometimes like those thicker cymbals, then they have like too much ping and like they sound too tinny to me. So I prefer thinner sounding cymbals and that are a little bit more on the bright side. But I have been meaning to get like a darker set as well at some point, because I also love those minor dark cymbals too. Like there's something like cool and trashy about them.
Exactly. Yeah, these are exactly what I have in mind. Put my hands on those. They sound great. I don't think they sound like amazing when you're in front of them, but when you mic them, yeah, it's awesome.
But I feel like that's a lot of drums in general. Like I even feel like with my DW kit, like to me, they never sound as good behind the kit as they do through mics. And even a lot of like Yamaha kits, like the Recording Customs, like I feel like they never quite sound as good as they do on mics, which is kind of the intention of them, I suppose. But if you're gigging with them or you're playing or recording with them, then like they're going to be mic'd up. They're going to, you want that to be the thing that comes through the PA.
Oh, for sure. And what about your mics, your overhead mics?
Right now, to be honest, I've always had this super cheap set of overheads that I've just, for whatever reason, I've kept, and I actually love them. They're these MXL 603s. They're super cheap mics. I think I got a pair of them for like $200, but they always work really good. Like I don't know, like if I'm in a studio that has more like higher end stuff, like I'll go for like a U87, something like that, a pair of those. But they always work really well, at least in my home setup. I don't know, something about them works. And then they're great on acoustics too.
That's a great way to start, especially if you don't have a lot of money to invest in microphones. MXL, they have some pretty decent mics. You know, I actually have a pair of ribbon mics from MXL that I used a lot.
Yeah, their ribbons are great. Like, they're super cheap. Like you said, they're a great way to get in. And I think I bought these. These were probably like one of the first mics that I ever purchased, you know. But they've always done the job. And it's again, one of those things where it's like, you take the time to learn how to make the most out of it, you know, and they work really well. So I'm happy with them. At some point, I will probably splurge and get something much nicer. But
if you need to.
Yeah. I mean, I recently did a shootout for my membership. We were doing like an overhead shootout, and like had the U87s, had like all the mics you can think of, and I brought those as well, and like they were pretty good. Like, you know, I think maybe like the U87s maybe had a little bit more definition in them, but like it wasn't a significant thing where I was like, oh yeah, these are like better mics, you know. It's they both did the job, so
that's cool.
That's all you can ask for, really, you know.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's someone out there who argue with me and say like, those are shit mics, but whatever, they work for me.
Who cares at this point, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't care. Like I have no problems with using cheap mics, and I've even seen like I've recently discovered Temu, that like Amazon knockoff thing, and they have so many like knockoff mics on there that I'm curious. I think that's a video I'm gonna make at some point. To just like buy, you know, spend $150 or whatever and get like a set of all Neumann knockoffs or something like that.
Yeah, see how it goes.
See how it goes. And I imagine it'll probably be decent, you know.
You never know. It could be surprising.
Yeah. But it's also like, you know, you learn the mics that you have, you learn what you would do in mixing, and then you kind of just build that into the chain, right? Like now, like I have my EQs kind of on the way in, especially with the UAD stuff, you know, I'll get those SSL channel strips or whatever, and, you know, EQ on the way in, and then I don't have to really worry about it in post either. It kind of
exactly.
fixes it up. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, another thing I was curious to dig into with you is something that I know you're passionate about as well, is just like workflow in general when it comes to mixing. And I was curious to dig into, like, when it comes to starting a mix, like, do you have a specific workflow that you implement there or that you follow regularly?
Yeah, I do like to have a static mix right away before I start adding plugins, especially if I'm getting tracks from a client. Sometimes it all depends on the you know, what I have to work with, but a lot of times if I'm getting a CUBASE session from a client, which happens now, most of the time, like all of the time at this point, I'm going to get the rough mix right away, you know, so the client's going to kind of give me where he left off, and I start from there. So I keep that, you know, and that's going to be my rough mix. I rebalance a few things, gain stage a few things that I need to, but this is going to be the session I'm going to start mixing into. And then I'm going to import some stuff from my template straight to my session. So that's one way. And same when I produce my own music. When I finish the recording part of production, I'm going to work on a rough mix, a balanced mix. I'm going to make sure that I have like the best sounding mix possible without all the mixing processing I'm going to do after. So yeah, so if I'm getting tracks without that are not linked to a DAW, in that case, I'm just going to import the multi-tracks into my template, and I'm going to myself do a rough mix before I start. So I'm not going to start mixing the kick and snare, and, you know, I'm just going to like make sure I get the sound, the song to sound as good as possible before I start adding plugins.
With your template, do you have like kind of plugin chains all ready to go in there, or is it?
Yeah, all bypassed. Yeah.
All bypassed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can start clean. Yeah. So, and then I can, you know, on bypass what I need to add if I need to, or tweak from that point. Sometimes it's not the chain that's going to be in my template that's going to end up on that specific mix. It's a good starting point, but for some reason, sometimes I will change a few things on vocals for example. So maybe the compressor I have in my template is not going to fit well with these vocals. I might change things around. Maybe I need to add less compression than the 3 compressors I have on my template. So the plugins are part of the template, so I can save time when I need to work with them. So it's all there. So even like on reverb channels, sometimes I'm going to have like 3 reverbs. I'm not going to use three reverbs on the same channel, but I know what reverb will work for the snare, for example. So I have like the choice of 3-4 reverbs that I know work and sound well, and I'm just going to try each of them and keep whatever works, and then I'm going to get rid of the rest. But they're going to be part of the template.
For sure, it's a speed thing. I do the same thing with like amp sims all the time. Like I'll have 3 or 4 different amp sims and kind of quickly audition, and whichever ones sound best, that's what stays, and get rid of the other ones. It's more, I think, just like having plugins in a template just allows you to not have to like spend all that time. Like it takes forever to go through the plugin menus and find everything. So to just be able to bypass something on and off and audition something, I think it's so much more efficient of a workflow.
And then you check into your plugin list, and then you get distracted by this new plugin you just purchased. Oh, I want to try this one. And then you just waste a lot of time. So it's all about the workflow and the timing, and same for routing. I think this is the most important of a mixing template, more than plugins, is mainly the routing of your session. So that usually for me doesn't change a lot. And sometimes when I change things around, I'm just going to tweak my template for future mixes as far as the routing goes. But so this is a huge part of using a template on where you're going to save lots of time.
What specifically with routing is important to you?
All of my main instruments are going to end up in an instrument group. So all the drum-related channels are going to end up into my drum bus, a main drum bus. And I have one for bass, I have one for vocals, guitars, and synths. So this is the main thing. I sometimes also use it as part of my template. I also use a kind of a parallel channel for a rear bus channel, they call it, which is basically parallel compression, where I feed those instrument group channels into, except the drums.
It's like the Andrew Sheps thing, right? Everything except for drums creates more density.
Exactly, yeah. So it's parallel compression, basically. So I don't need to do it on the drums with that channel because I already have some parallel processing on the drums on its own. But so.
Nice. And then as far as like once you've got that rough mix set up, and do you then start working in a specific order to like get through your mix?
Yeah, I'm going to start with drums for sure. I'm going to start with drums, especially kick, snare, overheads to start. Then I'm going to bring the toms, the rooms, and get my decent drum sound. But for sure. The kick, the snare needs to be, for me, is the most important part of the drums.
Yeah. Well, it's the rhythm, right? It's like what people are going to dance to.
Especially in today's music, even the overheads are not that loud as they used to. Rooms is just to get the space around the drums and a bit of tone and kind of glue things together as far as the drum sound goes. But kick and snare is the most important elements with toms, of course. But kick and snare is those are the elements that are in the center of the stereo image. So I focus a lot on those elements when I mix. So kick, snare, bass. I'm going to bring on the vocals pretty soon, pretty early in my process. Everything, again, that is in the center of the spectrum, I'm going to work on and balance right away. So the vocals are not going to come very late into the process.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you already have your rough mix, the vocals are already there. So you're at least like listening in context. It's just at that point, it's just cleanup more than anything and making it.
No, exactly. And it's not like and once I have like a good drum sound without plugins, I don't bring all the faders down and start over. I keep it as is and just enhance what I have and bring up the parallel channels and bring up the effects and, and judge from this, make some mixing decisions from that point. If I need more compression or less or EQ and whatever, or if I need to add samples, which I love to work with like yourself, it's going to be part of it.
At what point in the process do you add like reverbs and delays and stuff like that? Like, is that kind of part of that, or is it kind of
when I work on my drums, I'm going to pretty early just move up the room. The room effect channels. Sometimes I work with reverbs. A lot of time I'm going to add room samples for snare and kick. So this gonna, like a room sample is always going to, like for me, always going to be part of the reverb sound of the drum.
So it's not necessarily like you're sending those things to a separate reverb channel. It's more just the kick has its own dedicated reverb sound from the samples.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do both. So I have like that snare room that I sampled, and I'm going to bring it in. Same as I do with my other drum samples that I work with. But I'm going to have one I'm going to bounce that is going to have like just room, a snare room sample. And same for the kick. And I find it for the kick, it's pretty more natural in a way, because you don't want to have like lots of space around the kick anyways. You want to keep it close and punchy, but not too dead also. It's kind of I think that's a good way to get a very nice space around the kick without being distracting. But then I'm also going to have a reverb for the snare, toms, and all the rest if I need to. And of course, room reverbs, room emulation verbs for overheads.
Gotcha. Just kind of like gluing it all together in like a room simulator, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I put a lot of attention on drums.
Of course,
I'm pretty sure you do too.
It's
what we do.
It's like that classic thing of like you can always tell what instrument someone plays just by their mixes and whatever the loudest thing is, right?
Exactly.
It's taken me a long time to try to like focus on other instruments and like let's get good at guitars, like. But
yeah.
But you have to you start with what you know best and whatever you're going to record the most. I think that's the thing, right? Like
no, exactly. But if you can nail everything that is in the center of the stereo image, everything else is going to mix itself. You can bring all the guitars, pan them left and right, whatever you have to do, and it's like back vocals. It's going to be pretty easy. Everything that is panned is going like keyboards and stuff. There's an EQ adjustment to make sure everything fits together and don't step over each other. But I don't spend as much time on guitars that I do on drums, and on vocals.
How long do you find it normally takes you to finish a mix?
It depends. If I'm mixing for a client, it could be between 4 to I would say maybe 6 hours, 6 to 8 with touch-ups. If it's my own music, it could go forever. It's the thing that sometimes can take too long.
Yeah. So then how do you know when you're done a mix?
When the mix feels good, that I'm not getting distracted by anything, where I can like shut down the computer screen, listen to the mix while I'm doing something else, and just enjoy the music without, being, like I said, distracted by something that pops out too loud or whatever, And also at the point when I get to the point where I only need to do tiny moves, like 0.5 dB there and 0.4, and like when I'm at this stage, it's like, okay, just bounce it, because this is a never-ending story at this point. You can always do something on the mix.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's like when you're looking for problems, you're always going to find a problem.
Always.
So it's like if you catch yourself doing those small moves, it's probably something that no one else cares about, and you're just doing it because you think you need to.
No, exactly. And I don't think a perfect mix exists.
That takes me to my last question that I always ask everyone then, which is like, maybe not a perfect mix, but in your mind, what makes a great mix?
The minute I listen to a song on Spotify or Amazon or whatever, and I don't listen to the mix, this is where I know the mix is good.
Simple.
So, yeah, that's it. So yeah. There's time where you need to you want to analyze what they're doing, because you want to get a good reference out of it, so that there's a time for that, But when I listen to music, if the mix is distracting me from enjoying the music, enjoying the art, it's a bad mix. Aside from that, if I can enjoy the music and get into the mood and just like live the experience, it's a great mix. It actually, it made its purpose, which is me enjoying the piece of art that I'm listening to.
Exactly. That's what this is all about, right? It's like, that's why we're doing it. We're trying to make it enjoyable for other people. So if it isn't because our mix is in the way, then that's a problem.
And it doesn't need to be a perfect mix to achieve that. That's the thing, because on paper, I could listen to some indie folk music that on paper are far from being perfect. I can actually point a few things out, and I would do this better, and this, that kick is a bit like muffled or more dark, but the song, the music, the production, the general vibe actually brings me out of that analyzing state, so it brings me out of it. And that means, okay, it's a good mix. Even if it's not perfect, it's a good mix for the purpose of this piece of art.
I love that, man. I think that's a great spot to wrap it up because, yeah, I think it's so true. It's like I can think about all my favorite songs, and I'm sure if I went into it thinking, what would I do different in this mix, I would find something. But they're my favorite songs for a reason, because like I've just focused on the music all along, and the mix didn't get in the way. So, yeah, I think that's a great spot to wrap up, man. Chris, thank you so much for coming on here. If you want to learn more about you, follow you online, follow your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
Mixdownonline.com. This is my website. Same for the YouTube channel. You can find me under Chris Selim or Mixdown Online, straight on YouTube. Yeah, I also have like a free gift for your audience. And this one is about, since we're talking about drums, let me bring that one up. Yeah, 5 pro reverb techniques to make your drums stand out. Okay, so if you want to download this one for free, I'm going to leave the link with Mike and just a free PDF guide pointing out all good pointers, to get a good drum sound. So something to keep around your desk every time you record or mix drums.
And drum reverb is important. You got to get that right. There's a lot of things that you can mess up with not treating reverb properly. So.
Oh yeah, especially on drums, for sure.
Oh yeah,
for sure. So
they should definitely download that and check it out and make some awesome drums.
Yeah, and I also share, like you, I have my own podcast with my good friend Steve Zirkins, the Studio Stuff podcast. We started that project maybe like 6 months ago, and so far we're still doing it, so it's a good sign.
It's another great podcast. I definitely listen to it a lot, and you guys have great banter and everything. It's fun, man. So
thanks. Yeah, we're having that discussion type of approach, and we're trying to have fun at the same time. So
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, I'm envious of your podcast because you have a co-host, so it makes it a little more fun.
It is fun.
I mean, that's why I do this. I do interviews for the same purposes, right? But sometimes when you just like can riff off of someone else, it can be a lot of fun too.
I don't know how they can do it. Like people that are solo on a podcast, especially in our niche, I think it's pretty hard. Like YouTube videos are different because there's the visual aspects, but an audio podcast by yourself, that's hard.
Yeah. Well, people should definitely check it out too because it's awesome. So yeah, man. Chris, again, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. And people are going to make some awesome drums as a result of this episode. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, thanks for the invite again. Keep on the good work, man. It's amazing.
So that was my chat with Chris Selim, and it was great to learn more about his processes and especially around recording drums in a small studio. I thought he gave us some awesome techniques to think about there, especially as it relates to things like character mics. That is, in my mind, that is the way to get your drums to sound so much better and bigger in a home studio. It's like, yeah, definitely, like I said, you want to focus on getting your close mic sounding really good first. Like, get a great drummer who can play really well. Get your drums in tune really well as well. And then get your mics all set up so that you're getting the sound of the close mics really nice and that everything is sounding really full coming from that. But then once you've got that, then adding some character mics, that can really provide extra depth. Right. And that's obviously going to be dependent on the room you're working in. If you have the ability to put some room mics further out in the room, that's going to help give you a little bit more depth. Or if you have the ability to put a mic in a hallway or down a stairwell or something like that, that also is going to give you so much more depth. Like I said in the interview, like I always try to make a point of finding a bathroom whenever possible. Like if there's a bathroom down the hall, that's where a mic's going to go. Because I really like what Chris said here. It's like, it's going to be a reflective room, and yeah, all those reflections can really do something cool. And when you take those sounds and then you maybe add a little bit of saturation, a little bit of compression, it can really sound exciting and make your drums sound like they're in a significantly bigger room than in a bedroom. But you will be able to get those results. So definitely experiment with mics. And I think when you do that, it's going to really open up a world of options available to you that you can also apply to other instruments, not just drums. But, drums, those are one of those things that, like, most people say you need a big studio to capture drums. Big studios can sound really nice, and they have the advantage of depth, but you don't really need them if you take the time to really experiment with your rooms and your mic positioning. You can get pretty awesome results from a home studio. So yeah, I love digging into that with Chris today. And it was also really cool to learn more about his mindset of how he likes to approach his mixes, how he likes to set up his template, and even things like routing and how big of a role that plays in his process. I agree with him. I think that, making sure that your session is routed in a specific way gives you so much control. And I kind of follow a similar approach to what he talked about, where all my instruments go to an instrument bus, and then that instrument bus will go to a master bus. When you do it that way, you get so much more control of your mix. You can tackle the entire mix on the master bus, you can tackle all the drums on a drum bus, or go to the individual level. So it gives you this level of flexibility that is really helpful to help you mix fast, and so that you're not having to deal with a bunch of different plugins on a bunch of individual channels, when really maybe one plugin on a drum bus, for example, might be all you need. So yeah, I thought that was really cool to hear Chris's process there too. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that episode. It's always great to chat with Chris. And yeah, really glad that he was able to come on here today. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as well. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way you're notified about all new episodes as they go live each and every Wednesday morning. And if you need help with your mixes, if you want someone that can help you go through the entire recording, editing, mixing, and mastering process, walk you step by step through how to get the sound that you ultimately hear in your head and get that to come out of your speakers. If you would like my one-on-one help with that, I would love to help you. And inside of my coaching program, Amplitude, that's exactly what I do. We first hop on a call, we discuss what sound you want, and then we reverse engineer that process. And we come up with a game plan for you through that recording, editing, mixing, and mastering process so that you know exactly what steps to take, and you ultimately end up with a clear, repeatable system that you can repeat with every one of your songs moving forward. So this is about making sure that you're getting the results that you want, but also simplifying your process so that things are easier and faster so that you can make more music. So if you're interested in learning more about this program, make sure to check out masteryourmix.com/amplitude. And on that page, you can find all the details there. And on that page is a link where you can book a call with me. So fill out the form and let's hop on a call together. I'd love to learn more about what you're working on and to see how I can help. I only work with people who I truly believe I can help. So if at the end of that call, it seems like you'd be a good fit, then we can talk about that program, what it would look like to work with each other, what the program includes, and all the details. But yeah, I would love to learn more about you and see how I can help. So once again, masteryourmix.com/amplitude, and you get all the details there. All right, and with that said, we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. I can't wait to chat with you in the next one. We'll talk soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Master Your Mix podcast. Please make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave a review. If you have any questions or comments for the podcast, send an email to questions@masteryourmix.com. And for more information on how to create pro recordings from your home studio, visit masteryourmix.com.